Good morning. Mage Therapy here for our ongoing lessons on therapy and my own exposure therapy on being comfortable talking about therapy in front of a video, in front of a camera, which I'm not. And I hope to use some of these little reels to put in a different channel. And so this is going to be useful. So good bearings wherever you are, whoever is seeing this. And today we are going to Carl Jung, the contemporary of Freud, and the man who came up with your subconscious, collective subconscious or unconscious. They were friends, and then they became enemies, and eventually Jung did not leave Nazi Germany, and took over the Psychoanalytical Institute in Berlin, I believe, and changed it because the Nazis were convinced that therapy or psychoanalysis was Jewish pseudoscience. I don't know. Not read too much into it. Not into it, but I've not gone in too much into the history of. I know a lot about Freud and about why he had to leave, why he was pressured. He almost didn't make it. He lit by the skin of his pants. The Nazis were in his house. There was some involvement with the Napoleonic descendant family. Very complicated. But he went to England. He already had cancer of the throat, I believe, and had a few very tough last years. But he was a tough man. And Anna Freud, of course, did an amazing, tremendous job. And I think she really solidified and took psychology to another level by researching. Most of her research was done on children, and I'm doing this because otherwise you can't see my eyes. There's like all this reflection, and it's kind of strange. It's meta. It's like goes on and on and on. Anyway, so there's Freud in his prime, the undisputed father of psychoanalysis, that talking cure. He's built a movement. Disciples gather around him in Vienna every Wednesday, the famous Wednesday evenings. And I still want to read the notes from those meetings because they're fascinating. I've read some of it. It's fascinating reading. It's the meetings of the Psychological Society, a kind of inner circle sworn to spread the gospel of the id, the Oedipus complex, and the primacy of repressed sexuality. And into this class walks a young Swiss psychiatrist named Carl Gustav Jung. The Swiss are a small people with a lot of production. It's amazing. Freud is immediately taken over by his brilliancy. He's brilliant, he's energetic, and perhaps most importantly, he's not Jewish. In anti-Semitic Vienna, Freud sees this Gentile from Zurich as the heir apparent, the crown prince who will carry psychoanalysis into the mainstream, respectability, the future. They begin a correspondence that spans years, hundreds of letters. Freud calls him his adopted eldest son. There's a love, profound love, on the part of Freud towards his towards Jung, and I don't think it's reciprocated, which is sad. But and that's the thing about sons. Sometimes they rebel. And he's not really a son. I mean, he takes his own interest and just shows up, but it's not like he's a. This. Why am I having such a hard time with this disciple? Jung starts to feel cramped by Freud's theories. It's not that he disagrees with everything. He sees the truth in repression, in the unconscious, in childhood trauma. But for Jung, Freud's map of the mind feels small, too clinical, too mechanical, too obsessed with what Jung calls the cellar of the psyche, the dark, dank basement of repressed desires. And that was Freud's specialty. Jung looks at his patients and sees something else. He sees dreams filled with symbols that seem to come from nowhere. Images of dragons, mandalas, wise old men, great mothers. He sees psychotic patients hallucinating myths they've never heard of or read. He travels to Africa, to New Mexico, to India, and he notices that a tribal story from the Pueblo people echoes a dream his patient in Zurich had last night. And a thunderous idea begins to form. What if the unconscious isn't just a personal basement full of your own forgotten junk? What if beneath that there's an even deeper layer, a vast ancient ocean that all of humanity shares? This is Jung's great contribution, the collective unconscious. Imagine your personal unconscious as a small pond. It contains the memories, traumas, and repressed feelings unique to your life. But beneath that pond, connected to all other ponds, is a gigantic underground aquifer, the source of all water. That aquifer is the collective unconscious. It's the inherited psyche, the spiritual DNA of the entire human race, passed down through millennia of shared experience. And swimming in this aquifer are what Jung calls archetypes. Archetypes are not specific images or stories. They're more like ancient patterns, primordial templates, empty forms that get filled by culture and personal experience. Think of them as the instincts of the psyche, the universal characters of the human drama. And some of them are the shadow. This is the dark side of the personality, the parts of ourselves we deny, reject, or hide. It's not necessarily evil, it's just the stuff that doesn't fit with who we think we should be. The angry parts, the jealous parts, the lustful parts. Jung says we all have a shadow, and the more we pretend we don't, the darker and the more dangerous it becomes. There's the anima or animus, the animal. In every man, Jung argues, there's an inner feminine, the anima. In every woman, an inner masculine, the animus. These are the contrasexual archetypes shaped by generations of interaction between the sexes. They influence our moods, our relationships, our projections onto partners. There's the Great Mother, the archetype of nurturing, comfort, but also suffocation and devouring. There's the Wise Old Man, the figure of guidance, meaning, and spiritual truth. There's the Trickster, the mischief maker who disrupts and upends, creating chaos that leads to growth. And then there's the most important one, the Self. Not the ego, the little me that goes to work and pays bills. The Self is the totality of the psyche, the unifying center, the image of wholeness. It's often symbolized in dreams as a mandala, a circle, a divine child. Jung believed the entire journey of life, what he called individuation, is about moving towards the self, integrating all the disparate parts, the shadow, the anima, the persona, into a unified whole human being. Freud saw the goal of therapy as making the unconscious conscious, particularly the repressed traumatic parts. Jung agreed, but expanded it. For him, the goal was not just healing, but wholeness. It was about entering into a dialogue with the deeper self, learning its symbols, respecting its mysteries, and becoming who you were always meant to be. The split with Freud was inevitable and brutal. When it came, Jung walked away shattered, but he kept walking into the depths, into the myths, into the collective oceans we all share. And in doing so, he gave therapy a soul. Now, they, in another time that was not so divisive, I think this rupture would have not happened. But we are politically and culturally in very complicated times. We're post Victorian era. The Moors have opened up, the Freudian repression. Yes, he's been one of the people that has helped open up the talk of the sex, of the self, but he is one of many. And into this, we have a lot of people who are significant. And for me, one of the great people that came out of this is Karen Horney. And Karen Horney was German, upper class German woman who was married to an industrialist, had a very good life, had children, and left Germany and came to the United States and walked out with Harry Sullivan, walked out of the Psychoanalytical Society of New York and founded their own psychoanalytical society in Baltimore. I think she eventually moved to Chicago. I like her perspective a lot. She also was the person who was probably most responsible for introducing Zen Buddhism to America, because she was a devotee of Suzuki. And when he came to America, she was shall we say, she was the person who made Buddhism and the concepts of Buddhism, meditation, and all the other concepts much more popular, and opened the doors to what happened in the 60s, which was the great mindfulness awakening, and eventually not Howard Zen, that's his father-in-law, John Kabat-Zinn, and his mindfulness, and how that has spread wide. And I will be talking about it later. But for today, I've been running for a while, and I'm going to do a little short video in Portuguese. Thank you.